Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fifth Rourke Bridge Replacement Project Working Group meeting. My name is Joe Breen, and I'm the Mass DOT Project Manager. I will now hand the meeting over to Reagan Chichico, the Public Outreach Coordinator.
Thanks, Joe. Liam, can you advance the slide? Great, welcome. So first, we wanted to share the working group procedures that we've developed to ensure that we've all worked well together. These are the same ones as the previous meetings. The meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the project website. By continuing attendance with this virtual meeting, you are consenting to participate in a recorded event. All recordings, Q&A, and chat transcripts will be considered public record. If you're not comfortable being recorded, you may wish to refrain from submitting written questions via Q&A, or you may choose to excuse yourself from the meeting. This is a working session for the Rourke Bridge Project Working Group and is intended to understand community feedback to further MassDOT's design. During the technical presentation, we're going to request that the working group members remain muted if you are not speaking in order to prevent background noise. If you have any questions for the project team following the meeting, you can send them via the link posted in the chat that I think Kyle will share. I'm also going to ask working group members to take a moment to make sure that your name and affiliation are displayed correctly and make any necessary adjustments. Next slide. Okay, so working group rules of engagement. So, as you can see on screen, please be respectful of the timeframes and others' opinions. Focus your comments on the agenda topic under discussion. Please use the raise hand or the Q&A feature in the bottom part of the screen for questions or comments. You may also use the chat for working group members. And I already noted below the link for additional feedback. Next slide. So during a Q&A, we're going to request that working group members use the Q&A feature to send questions. You can do this at any point during the technical presentation. During the discussion portion of the presentation, we're going to allow time for elected official comments before working group members' questions, either from the Q&A or verbally. Time permitting, we're going to have a public comment section at the end of the meeting. Again, if you're a member of the public and want to share that comment, you can use that Q&A feature. Please only submit one question at a time. If you run out of time to respond, if we run out of time to respond to the questions, you can submit them again in that link we just shared in the chat. Next slide. So I do want to read the notice of MassDOT's policy on diversity and civil rights. All MassDOT activities, including public meetings, are free of discrimination. MassDOT complies with all federal and state civil rights requirements preventing discrimination based on sex, race, color, ancestry, national origin, limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, or veterans status. We welcome the diversity from across our entire service area. If you have any questions or concerns, please visit mass.gov non-discrimination-in-transportation-program to reach the Office of Diversity and Civil Rights. And now I'd like to introduce Joe Breen, the MassDOT Project Manager. Joe?
Thank you, Reagan. I first would like to go over the agenda for this afternoon's working group number 5. First, I'll provide a brief introduction. Then we'll show our approach to the landscape design, which will cover the urban design concept, as well as the landscape design. And then we will follow it up by a brief project schedule, and then questions and discussions. And then we will follow with the meeting being adjourned. So per our last working group meeting, you recommended that we provide the last update to the working group on the project landscape design. In the interim, since the most recent working group number 4 in design public hearing, MassDOT and our engineering design consultant, HNTB, have met with members of the Lowell rowing community in the Lowell and the Greater Lowell Community Foundation Waterways Vitality Initiative Group to incorporate their recommendations. And this working group meeting will present the project urban design and landscape concept. The following people will be presenting during today's working group meeting. Myself, Mass DOT Project Manager Joe Breen. The Mass DOT Landscape Architects, which consists of Robin Bergfors and Peter Spellmeyer. Our design consultants, Matt D'Angelo, the project manager, and Etty Pato DePietro, our bridge architect, Kathleen Lynch, the landscape architect, and Shelby Chapman Hale, the landscape architect, and our public outreach coordinator, Reagan Checchio. I now would like to hand the meeting over to Robin Bergfors.
Thank you, Joe. So the landscape has two distinct types of landscape areas. One are the urban design areas, which we are calling hardscape. And those are areas off the bridge that require a sensitivity to and a continuity with the bridge architecture. So the bridge architects, Urban Idea Lab, are the lead designers for those areas. And the green landscape areas where planting will occur are intended to provide a relief from the urban streetscape, and they require an expertise in naturalized landscapes and ecological restoration. So Offshoots is the lead designer for those areas because that's their area of expertise. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Etty.
Thank you, Robin. So it is very important to understand the Rourke Bridge in context of other bridges in the area. Unlike the bridges in downtown area, the Rourke Bridge is on its own and is located in a much more natural setting, as you all know. So it is also located in the straight stretch of the river, which is one of the most premier venues for rowing. And so this bridge is perfect for viewing boats passing underneath. This bridge's location in an area that provide long panoramic views. So it is an opportunity not only to figure out how to best view the river from the bridge, but also how to view the bridge from the surrounding area. Next, please. Thank you. The fact that this bridge is set at an angle adds to the unique quality of the bridge and making this a natural, iconic bridge, or that's what we're aiming to do. And that has really guided our design approach. We're creating gateways to the north and to the south. Those are like the red circles. And then we're connecting the bridge. So the bridge is not just the bridge itself, but how it connects to the major street on each end is extremely important. We're also creating overlook using the abutment to the north and creating that into a new park, and also using the abutment to the south, which allow us to actually view the river over the railroad tracks. And so we think that this creates a real opportunity to connect the connect to the river from the river bank that we now do not have. And we also want to make sure that along the bridge itself, we create a series of overlook. Next. Yes, we want to make sure that this bridge is multimodal, not just for vehicular bridge, which is now where the bridge is very vehicular centric. We want to make sure this bridge truly serves the various user in the community. Next. Yeah, our inspiration is looking into the river itself. And we were really intrigued with the wave and the fluidity and the forms that the wave is forming. And so we take cues from that element and try to make sure these elements are carried throughout the bridge. And we're very proud of what we came up with. So next. Yes. So here, as you can see, this fluidity is not only in the horizontal level, is manifested on the overlook, but also we are using it for the trellis, which really help create a separation between the people who wants to stop and look out to the river, as well as the people who are just moving through the bridge. And also what the other thing that we want to see, what I said about panoramic view, having it to be able to be seen from the surrounding area. We are also very cognizant of the people who are on the boat looking into the bridge itself. Next. Yes. So here you can see more about all the different elements that we are incorporating into the bridge. Now we're going to just go through a series of images to show you how we manifest all these ideas into the design of the bridge itself. Next. So here it is. This is a view looking north, and way over on the end of the bridge, that is the gateway. And as you can see here, it creates what do you call that? A hierarchy of speed. So you have the vehicular, you have the bicycle, and you have the people walking and looking over to the bridge. That's an area where people can stop and enjoy the view, and also hopefully cheering the what do you call that? The boat crews. Yes, next. Yeah, here again, just showing you how we hopefully envision how the people will use the overlook itself. We created a trellis not only with a back to create that sense of safety, but also using it as a place where people can sit. But we don't want to clutter the overlook itself, because we heard that a lot of people are here during the major activity. So we want to have to make sure we maximize the overlook for having more people to be able to enjoy this this area. Next. Yeah, so what's really interesting in here, like I was saying about the speed, one of the things that we really want to do is to create this not like a highway. So we think it's really important to create this, what do you call that? Pedestrian kind of railing. And in order to do that, we create the crash barrier between the vehicular and the bicycle. So when you go on the other side, that's truly for the people who are walking and biking. Next. And here, another element that we want to show you is that number one, this is showing the overlook using the abutment that was there before. Now that become an opportunity to look over the train tracks so they can also be able to see the activity on the river, where now you do not have. But just look at the elements that we are trying to bring in where there's going to have to require a high fence over the railroad track. We don't just put an ugly, what do you call that? Chicken wire fence, but we try to make it everything as part of the design. So we want to make sure the design element are carried throughout. And I think the next one, I'm going to hand it over to Kathy, who also will talk about the landscape approach, also using this element again repeated throughout the bridge. Thank you so much.
And next. And as Eddie has described, really the overarching design theme of the hardscape and the bridge urban design itself is this waveform pattern based on the river, and to create a natural feeling. Next. So this pattern has been carried through to the gateways, so that we have a unified, from the gateway at Middlesex Street up to the gateway at Pawtucket, a unified design theory that's really based on the waveform elements to give a continuity for the entire project here. This is at the South Gateway, and I realize it's a little bit difficult to read, but creating at the actual entry seat walls with the waveform shape, and a mixing zone. These are actually fairly critical paved areas because they're where you have the bicyclists and the pedestrians coming together with the crosswalks and all that. So that will be a unique paving treatment at those wider areas at the corners for the mixing zones, both to set the design theme that carries through up the bridge, and also just to help provide safety for all these different modes of travel that are happening. What you can also see in this view again is with the new design looking from the south up over the southern overlook and then across the river there. It's still maintaining a view to the old north abutment, which is the park-like area that is being created that will be then returned to DCR use. So next. So just in plan view, this reflects the wave pattern, sort of the free-form curvy seat walls to allow gathering, and the specialty paving pattern at these mixing zones. So next. And up what we're calling, the old south abutment or the south overlook. So using what's there, sort of the general geometry of what's there now, to serve as an area for people to gather, to watch events, but also just to gather on a daily basis and look out over the river. And when there are big events, this would be a location where you could have vendors or, assistance tents located. So it serves the functioning of the more major events. There would be bike racks at this location. So it's the entry to the bridge. Next. And as you see, this would also have the sort of the freeform wave pattern seat wall defining a green space along the sidewalk to provide some separation. There would be bench seating as well as, shade provided by trees. So next. And then as we move toward the northern gateway at Pawtucket Boulevard, it's a shorter approach here. And I do want to say that what you're seeing here, Shelby will be presenting the landscape concept. So this will be an area that will be more formally naturalized, if that's the proper term. And Shelby will talk about that. So next. So again, here we have the free-form wave pattern, seat walls, and the widened mixing zones to allow gathering. I think the assumption is that you'll have people gathering here in groups before events. So we did want to provide not your typical just small paved area for the gathering spaces. So next. So again, just a plan view of it, and to the west on Pawtucket, providing the shared use path that would connect to the bridge and be connecting across and along Pawtucket Boulevard, and separating that from Pawtucket Boulevard by naturalized planting to make it a much more comfortable cycling and pedestrian location. So next. And then at the existing north abutment, since that's going away, we can utilize that plot of land to create a small park that would be turned over to DCR. So it's an open green space, and again, it gives a great view for people who are here looking out over the river and across. It still makes the visual connection to the old south abutment on the opposite side of the river, along with giving a beautiful, viewpoint to the bridge itself. So next. And again, just another view, just a simple oval of lawn with some trees filling in. Everything to the west of the oval that is DCR property that remains untouched, as does the property on the lower right-hand side here to the east of the new park. So next. And just a plan view. So what you see in here is really the area that would be, returned to parkland and added back to the DCR park. So next.
Kathy, I would like to note something, please.
Sure.
Our work is going to be confined to the existing state highway layout. So we will not be impacting the retaining wall or the vegetation that is channelward towards the river. Just put a finer point on that. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, and I think that's it. And again, this is the overview of the different areas, and I'll turn it over to Shelby to talk about the planting restoration concepts.
Thank you, Kathy. We go to the next slide, Liam. And we go to the next one. So as Robin mentioned, I'm going to walk you through the planting concept. And we've really taken an ecological approach that carries that natural aesthetic that you saw in the bridge and in the hardscape and pulls it in through the landscape as well. And it's a big site. So you can see here, just to sort of orient us, we've got Pawtucket on the north. We got that full extents up to the bridge and then down the south all the way to Middlesex. And so you'll see as I go through these slides, what we're really trying to focus on is keeping maintenance as minimal as possible, using native plants, both for their ecological benefits. We're right by the river. We want to be thinking about species that, as they move over time, we want to be contributing positively to the seed bank. We want to be thinking about pedestrian benefits like shade. And also, we just want to really think about which plants are suited to the environment. You'll hear a lot of landscape folks say, right plant, right place. So we're thinking about that throughout this project. And as you can see and imagine, there's very many various types of planting. So what we've done is take a plant community strategy. So we'll walk through all of those different types and just keep in mind for all of them, we're thinking about plants that are adaptable. So they're native, they're used to this growing conditions, they can handle salt tolerance, variety of soil moistures and soil exposures. So we'll walk through each of those. Let's start with street trees. If we go to the next slide. So street trees are really a nice place to start because they provide a framework. And so whenever street trees are appropriate throughout the project, we want to include them to start to create this continuous aesthetic rhythm of trees through the space. And again, they really provide environmental benefits, but also microclimate benefits. You know, as we go through the different spaces and we talk about having large gatherings, it can be really a good tool to have shade trees available to provide shade for pedestrians. Anywhere that we have street trees that aren't in one of the typologies I'm going to walk through, they will have just a simple lawn strategy below, which will be typically in places like alongside the multi-use paths where we need to have the clearance, or places like the parks where we need to have line of sight. So if we go to the next slide, you can see just some sample images of some native trees. The idea being that anywhere we have enough space, we could use a large native shade tree. And then on the next slide, some samples of our native smaller trees that tend to be sort of ornamental. We can use these trees in areas where we don't have as much space or below overhead wires. Next slide. Up on Pawtucket Boulevard, there is a decent sized median where we're proposing 2 distinct plant communities, both of which will be low maintenance, salt tolerant, very important in that chunk. But what these will allow us to do is have street trees in this space while still working within this low maintenance idea, working with the operations folks to think about what is feasible in these spaces. And as we go to the next slide, I'm just going to mention this as we're looking at these. The first of the 2 typologies that we're proposing is this woodland strategy. And the idea is that as in areas along the median where there might be a driveway or a road, that we can create a visual buffer and start to have areas where there are some shrubs that are appropriately spaced and sized for the site so that they can remain low maintenance. But this allows us to have trees sprinkled throughout and start to connect back to that natural feeling of the bridge. If we go to the next slide. The other median typology is meadow. And so this is the idea of using a native seeded meadow. It could have pollinator benefits, bird benefits, but also be low maintenance, requiring to get mowed back 1 time in early spring each year so that woody plants don't grow up through there. So we can start to have some really great ecological benefits that are also low maintenance. If we go to the next slide. Gateways. So Kathy mentioned the gateways. And so to further play up the feeling of passing through this portion of the landscape and approaching the bridge, if we go to the next slide, you can see the idea here is just to be conscious of what's happening with the hardscape and the hardscape forms and provide essentially tree species that can act as a wayfinding tool. So maybe small ornamental trees and shrubs that are consistent at each gateway to start to mark that and differentiate it from the rest of the landscape. Next slide. And then the abutments. So as Kathy mentioned, at the abutments for the old bridge, there's a really strong focus on creating a connection to the river. There's great opportunities to create overlooks and gathering spaces in these areas. So starting with the north abutment, if we go to the next slide. In this space that we just looked at with Kathy, well, the idea here is that there'll just really be this pastoral park feeling where you have trees and lawn. You can have line of sight into the space, and it's sort of that classic park feeling. If we go to the next slide, you can see an image of the existing Lowell Heritage State Park landscape. So you can see that the idea here is that we're reconnecting this space back to the existing landscape. And if we go to the next slide, this is some sample images of native trees that you might expect to find along the river if it was a natural area. So the idea here is that we're stitching together the 2 landscapes, the natural area to the west, the existing park, and bringing them together with native trees in this pastoral park feeling. So next we can go to the south abutment. So here is really an area where that street tree and lawn strategy gets pulled into this plaza space. And this was going to provide shade and a little bit of refuge in that area if there's gatherings, and really complement that feeling of it being a special plaza space. And as you can see, just to the north of the plaza space, where there's sort of the triangle of trees going out, that's the idea that we could potentially use pioneer tree species, which are trees that might come in first if there's a disturbance, if they get there before the invasive species. But those are trees that can really handle tough site conditions. So we can use those trees that will do well in that space to start to create a frame where you can reconnect the site back to the river, just giving a little bit of an ecological frame. We go to the next slide. Again, this is just reiterating the idea that we're going to be pulling these native street trees through the space and trying to make it feel a little bit special and different, but still connecting to the natural ecology that is the context of this site. Next slide. Okay, so there's also a couple of stormwater management practices throughout the project. At the intersection of Pawtucket and Old Ferry Road, you can see we've highlighted 2 bioretention areas. These are adjacent to existing wooded areas. So if we go to the next slide here, the idea is that these would be planted with native trees and shrubs in a very naturalistic style so that they'll visually blend back into the existing natural areas beyond. And these plants are, again, low maintenance, native, and really suited to a bioretention system where you can get these inundations of water and then have dry periods. And so these are plants that can handle those conditions. And having a pocket of trees and shrubs like this can also provide a really wonderful early spring resource for pollinators when those are just about the only things blooming at that time. Next slide. We also have 2 vegetated swales as a part of the stormwater system. One is on the south approach at the bottom of a hill coming down, and one is in the median on Pawtucket. If we go to the next slide, you can see that the idea here is that this is really similar to that meadow concept, but it's species that can handle the conditions associated with a swale, similar to bioretention, where you're going to have times where there's a big storm and there's a bunch of rain, and times of drought. So they're really taking that meadow typology and having plants that are more well suited to that. And that is, in the median, tucked in within the meadow. So really will read as one landscape and have the same simple maintenance strategy for all of these areas. Okay, and then the next slide, our last but definitely not least in my eyes typology, is ecological restoration areas. So in the areas that are not heavily programmed or not being used for stormwater or not adjacent to open space multi-use paths, we have an opportunity to provide some ecological restoration where we can think about species that might naturally occur in this landscape and install those in such a way that those areas can more or less, with a little help, return to a natural state. So if we go to the next slide, there's essentially 2 typologies. As you get closer up to the bridge and your upland, the soils are drier. We have an upland plant community based on Mass Heritage plant lists. And then if we go to the last slide, we also have a lowland plant species. There's some areas that are very wet. And so this is pulling from, again, those natural heritage landscapes to provide something that can really handle the site and put seeds back into the seed bank along the river that we want to be there and try to fight out some invasives. So that wraps up the planting portion, and I will hand it back to Joe Breen.
Thank you, Shelby. I next would like to briefly go over the project schedule. Currently, the bridge replacement project is on schedule. The Rourke Bridge replacement project, as you all know, is a design build project, which is used to accelerate the project delivery. The RFP, or request for proposal date, is this August of 2024. The construction and procurement is scheduled to start mid-2025. The construction duration is scheduled for a 3-year duration. And the project completion and ribbon cutting is scheduled for mid to late 2028. So we can now move on to questions, and I will hand the meeting over to Reagan to go over some of the questions for you.
Certainly. I know some people have already raised their hand, but first I do want to recognize if there are any elected officials present that want to make a comment now. I can recognize you. Raise your hand. Okay. You might be holding your comments. So I will now turn to working group members who would like to make comments. And I see, John, you have your hand raised. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask you a question.
Thank you. I have three questions or comments. The first would be slide 16. Could we look at slide 16? Or actually 17 will do, 16 or 17. I see Senator Kennedy has his hands up. I suspect I should defer to Senator Kennedy.
Well,
Well,
I
that's,
did not.
go ahead,
I
John. Go right ahead. I was just late. Go ahead with yours.
Okay, Ed, I got three questions. It shouldn't take the comments. It shouldn't take too long, as long as we can find the slides. Yeah, you're good. You're good. No, wait a minute. I'm looking at the number in the top right-hand corner. You've gone past it now. 13. Go to 17, please. Great. So one of the things that people are going to do is they're going to watch boats pass under the bridge, and in particular during the races. How do we anticipate people wanting to cross over to the other side as the boats race underneath and continue on the other side? It seems to me as though that might pose some challenges.
Matt D'Angelo, do you have a minute to kind of discuss that a little bit, please?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I mean, a lot of times, obviously, we have mid-block crossings or any sort of pedestrian accommodations across the roadway. But I imagine for a major event like this, John, there may be some traffic restrictions or additional police detailing that would assist on some of that crossover. But I don't anticipate where, people are running back and forth or in live traffic situations. If it's a large enough event that people are going to want to go from side to side during a race event, I think that's a consideration for additional public safety detailing. Not necessarily something the project would accommodate, with crosswalks or safe crossing between the bridge abutments as well.
We have a preponderance of parents when the high schools are racing. And at that point in time, they put blinkers on because they've got their phones on record in front of them. And I can see them jumping across the border, across this to 4 lanes and over to the other side. So I just wanted to bring up that that's a likelihood. There are hundreds and hundreds of parents and watchers on the event. My second comment is on slide 27. My question was on the northern side of, this is the northern side, and on the northern side of this intersection where the traffic is coming and going to onto Old Ferry or coming from Old Ferry. It appears from this picture that there are 3 lanes coming south, but 1 lane going north. Is that correct?
Say that again, John. Go ahead. Sorry. 3 lanes south and 1 lane north.
So where it says Old Ferry Road,
Mm-hmm.
and assuming that looking down is south and looking up is north according to the arrow, it looks as though there are 3 lanes coming south, but 1 lane going north. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct, yes.
Well,
Jonathan, sorry, go ahead.
Walk through the cross section here. So there are 2 lanes heading southbound onto the bridge. One also allows you to turn right to go westbound on Pawtucket Boulevard. Then there's another left turn only lane, which allows you to turn left onto eastbound Pawtucket Boulevard. Then there is 1 receiving lane on heading northbound up towards Varnum.
I could be mistaken, but I thought you were in discussions with Market Basket about widening that. And I thought that there was a 2nd lane that was going north from the boulevard north. Am I incorrect?
I don't have any information.
I don't think
on
it's,
that.
yeah, I don't recall that, Joe, from our discussions yet, or if they've advanced far enough with Market Basket to speak to that.
Okay, so I guess I just would leave you with, is that adequate? I see far more traffic coming from the bridge trying to go north than coming from Pawtucketville south on Old Ferry Road. So I'm going to leave that as a question. And my last question is number 34, and I think it would be Shelby. Could I look at slide 34? On 2 occasions, the chair of the Conservation Commission has expressed specific concerns about old, very large oak trees located on the north side, between the old abutment. There are a group of 2 or 3 very large oak trees within about 50 feet of the river. And then there are about 5 or 6 adjacent to where the new bridge comes into Pawtucket Boulevard in that area on the right. You're going to have to go before the Conservation Commission, and my recommendation would be you'd have a clear understanding as to what the future of those oak trees might be before going before the Lowell Conservation Commission. Aside from that, I'm just delighted with the presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll look into that, John, and reach out to the Lowell Concom.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Senator Kennedy, and my apologies for skipping over you.
That's okay. I was kind of late to unmute myself and get my camera back on. But anyways, my question is, what is the current cost estimate for the bridge? Has that changed since the last time we've met? And my understanding was that the money for the bridge would come from a combination of federal money and state money. And the state money was part of a bond authorization that goes back to, I think, 2019, maybe 2019 or 2020. I don't recall for sure, but has that, is that, are the funds still in place? Has that bond authorization expired, or is there a concern about that? Or is that something that you're not sure of and you want to get back to us on?
I can answer that. Current cost, I believe, is in line with what we talked about last time, which is 190 million. The project is in the 2024 TIP, and the cost of the project will be incurred by Massachusetts bond and the federal highway funding.
Yes.
So
Okay.
a combination of the 2.
Okay, so that there's not an issue there. That should be okay, right?
Correct. It's in the 2024 tip, the current tip.
Yep.
So it's all been locked in and allocated.
Okay, great.
Funding.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Apologies. Joe, I'm not sure if your video is working. It's appearing black to me, so just flagging that for you.
Okay.
Gerard, I will call on you next.
Great, thank you. Again, Jerry Frechette. First of all, nice presentation. I just want to more of a comment first, is I absolutely love the treatment of the old south abutment. I really think that that's taking advantage of, full advantage of that location. So it really is nice to see with the landscaping and the hardscape and really making an observation spot. And I love the fact that you're going to bike racks there as well. I do have a question or further clarification. I guess slide 34 showed it a little bit more, but on we mentioned the some landscape islands on Pawtucket Boulevard. I'm just curious, if you could just elaborate a little bit more on that. It looks like I don't know what's happening with the lanes in that location. It looks like it's in the location where on the north side where the existing bridge is coming down now. So just trying to get an idea of what's actually happening on the boulevard with that. I love the concept, but just trying to understand what's happening with the lanes at that location.
Jonathan, north of the old north abutment.
Yeah,
Just-
yeah, this is just a little hard to, this is not the right graphic to try to explain this on, unfortunately.
On the street trees graphic.
If you go to the old
That's where
north
I talk
abutment
about
graph-
all the traffic on the
bigger.
street trees graphic. Well, if you squint really hard,
Oh, boy. Yep.
there's a little bit of white space in between.
Oh, yeah. I
the-
see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, where the circle is, and then right,
It's like a
right
magic
in the
eye
middle of a
thing, yeah.
landscape island. Yep.
Yeah. And then, yeah, like a magic eye thing. So maybe something cool will appear if you squint even harder. So that right there is actually a mid-block crossing. It's pedestrian activated, so it's on demand. There are stop lines on both sides for vehicles. It'll have a pedestrian hybrid beacon or a hawk signal on it. So most of the time it doesn't show anything. People just drive right through. When it's activated, it flashes and then it turns red and vehicles stop in both directions. There's 2 lanes of traffic in either direction there. The driveways are maintained for the bowling alley and the connection for the side streets along that stretch as well.
So there's going to be a pedestrian light there, is what you're saying.
Yes. One of the benefits
Oh.
on both sides of and there's one on the other side too. So on either side of Old Ferry, whether you're on the east side of Pawtucket or the west side of Pawtucket,
Yep.
there's a pedestrian hybrid beacon. No matter where you're walking, you don't have to cross and wait. Depending on where you're walking from, you can use either of those to cross Pawtucket Boulevard and have the same benefits of a stopped traffic signal as you would if you were crossing at the Old Ferry intersection waiting for an exclusive red phase.
Okay. Oh, that's a nice feature we didn't even talk about. So that's nice to, what a little trick. I took a picture of it with my phone and then I blew it up. So
That's an excellent trick. Yeah.
it helped a little bit anyways.
Slide
So, no.
34 actually has an enlargement.
Now you
Not
know.
34, 43. If you go ahead to slide 43. Yeah.
There you
Oh,
go.
nice. Oh, okay, nice. Okay. Yeah. All right. Oh,
Yes, you
wow.
have the 2 lanes in either direction.
Yep.
And it provides a time to cross the entire length in one shot. You don't get stuck in the median or anything like that. If you do get stuck in the median, there is another call button there. But it's not intended to have you get stuck in the median.
Yeah, no, it's good because it's a challenge, and that's always been to try to connect, again, the walkability. I mean, we've got the state forest, we're gonna have actually Rowley's Farm, you've got the riverfront, the The bridge itself is going to be, I think, an attraction even to walk on. So yeah, no, hopefully that'll be a safe place to cross. But no, I appreciate the treatment of that. I don't recall that in any of the conversations, so I do appreciate that. Again, the timeline, I do appreciate the fact that it appears to be on schedule. There's a lot of skepticism and cynicism in the community, and I keep reassuring people that, you know, we're being told it's on schedule, and I keep telling everybody to stay healthy and stay alive for the ribbon cutting. So for 2028. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Jonathan?
Hi, thank you. I want to apologize for being late to the meeting. I lost this particular meeting and amongst some others that I think have been recently postponed or canceled by Matt D'Angelo. I'm from the Lowell Waterways Vitality Initiative. We're the folks that lit up the Cox Bridge and the Willette Bridge across the Merrimack River in Lowell. And I've been working with Matt and others to discuss lighting of the bridge, particularly the lower deck area. And I've been participating in several meetings. I think they're productive. We even offered to help manage the lights once they're installed and operational, because we have some experience with the current bridges that we do operate. So I just wanted to apologize for coming in late and offer my support for the project and discussions so far regarding the lighting of the bridge. Thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Just as an add to that, right? The next couple of meetings have been postponed. You know, we had a every 2-week session to discuss lighting, and our folks from DGA are on the phone here too, Fat and his team and Domingo, and those conversations have been great for us too, right? You know, we want to make sure that the final product is consistent with what the city has done in past bridge lighting, and make sure the equipment is consistent with what has been used too, from a long-term operations and maintenance standpoint too. So productive on our end for sure. We're going to meet again, I think, in about a month, right? Once the final design package is in, or final preliminary design package is in, and then we get into more of the kind of the nuts and bolts of the procurement activities, the written specifications for that equipment in those operation and maintenance manuals. Okay.
Sounds great. We look forward to participating in those future meetings, and thanks again for including us in the discussion. And it's been a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So I will just pause for a moment and see if any other members of the working group have questions or comments right now. Jerry?
Just one question. Is there any possible issues that are still remaining out there that could possibly delay the schedule at this point?
So Jerry, every week I have a meeting with my team, and I outline in detail, you know, all the steps that we have. So everything it's like a full court press on every item every day of the work week. And so at this point, no, but you know, if anything does arise, myself and I reach out to everyone else to have that addressed as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I would appreciate if you could, if say something really came up that you weren't anticipating, if you could let the working group know, because again, there's just a lot of things in the community that's thrown out there as, you know, kind of perceiving that this isn't happening or things have stalled, and you know, do we need to get other people involved? And it's, you know, so anything that would you think is, I think would be worthy to get out to the committee, or even just to the public, whether you even do a press release, I don't know, but I just think it's important. I know we keep saying it's on the website, but you know, you got to be proactive to go looking for it. So, but no, I would appreciate any effort in that respect, or even reaching out to the working group if there's anything unforeseen. And then other than that, I would assume this presentation is going to be out on the website.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Within, you know, about a week or two.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other working group members with questions or comments? I know there are 2 comments in the Q&A from members of the public. 3, I'll say. All right, well, I will shift then to the public comment period. And then after that, we will, I'll have Joe do closing remarks. So in the Q&A, there's a question from Elizabeth Coughlin asking if we've coordinated with Fish and Wildlife regarding impact to existing species, especially during construction, relating to habitat and food source continuity. And have you taken that into consideration with your overall new planting design elements?
Matt, was you or Sean Ross, you can just briefly how we've adhered to all federal and state regulations. Go ahead,
Yeah.
please.
John, will be great to speak to the Fish and Wildlife.
Sure. So as part of our environmental review and permitting process, we've coordinated with the National Marine Fisheries Service to assess impacts to essential fish habitat within the Merrimack River. We've since gotten word or concurrence from National Marine Fisheries Service that the proposed project will not adversely impact any federally managed species within the Merrimack River. As part of that process, we did tons of research. It showed that the species, the identified species within the river through this stretch of the Merrimack River, Atlantic salmon, the population is low through the stretch of the river, given the dam impediment further upstream. As part of the project, we will be also incorporating best management practices to avoid, minimize, and mitigate any potential impacts. So we've done that coordination and coordinated that with the appropriate regulatory agencies, so that should not be an issue.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
Senator Kennedy, so your hand
Yeah, I
is
just
raised.
have one other question, probably is the when will the working group meet next? And do you anticipate that the working group would meet throughout construction, or when do you think that our work would be concluded?
Good. So, Senator Kennedy, this I believe will be the last working group because we're going to hand the project over to the design build entity and our contractor. So we plan to have this as the last working group meeting.
Okay. And there won't be any meetings during construction. Construction will just happen.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question, though. Thank you.
All right, so I will go to the next question in the Q&A, which is actually several questions and a comment. A little bit more about, I'll direct some members of the project team to the Q&A. So I think this is going to go to a number of people, but question about the skew angle of the bridge, whether there will be a camera sensor on the north and south intersections, the length of the bridge span, and the speed limit on the bridge, as well as whether a right turn on red will be allowed from the bridge onto East Pawtucket, and whether there are illumination light poles on the bridge. So starting from the first question, the skew angle of the bridge.
I can jump in on the bridge related questions there.
Thanks, Sean.
Yep. So the skew angle of the bridge, it comes across the Merrimack at roughly a 45-degree angle, with respect to the existing bridge that's out there today. The spans, they vary slightly, but the main spans are 200, just right on 200 feet. Centerline of pier to centerline of pier over the main stretch of the Merrimack, slightly shorter at the approaches. And kind of cherry picking the bridge stuff here, but are there illumination light poles on the bridge? There are. I don't believe they were shown in this presentation. We've shown them in previous working groups. There'll be light poles for both the pedestrian and the roadway lighting on the bridge, as well as continuing off.
I
looked it up, Sean, that the light poles were in working group number 3. That presentation is online.
Yeah, thank you, Pop.
You got all the bridge stuff, huh?
I think so.
The bridge length from abutment to abutment is 1,255 feet.
Jonathan,
Oh, the
I think
overall. Sorry, I was giving span length. Yep. Thank
Jonathan, I think there's a few traffic
Yep.
questions.
Yeah, I'm
there.
gonna jump in on those.
Okay.
So it asks if there's gonna be a camera sensor on both the north and south intersections. So it is intended that the intersections are covered with video detection for the intersections, not loop detectors, which are put into the pavement, and the cars drive over them and they get detected. These will be detected with video. So they're not traffic cameras. They're not intended to cover anything other than seeing if a vehicle is in a left turn lane to activate that particular movement. The speed limit on the bridge. So there's a statutory speed limit within the city. It's not intended right now to be posted with a particular speed. It's set to the statutory speed. And it's designed to 30 miles an hour. And then the right turn on red, since there's an all-exclusive phase at the intersection, it's intended that vehicles don't turn during that all-inclusive phase. There will be periods of time when some through movements may be stopped and a right turn is possible. Those will have green arrows associated so that they can lap with other turning movements, say like a left turn movement on the other side or something like that.
Thank you all. The next question is from Dave, which is a question about will there be navigational lighting on the bridge abutments for motorboats traveling at night?
I can answer that, Reagan. So the U.S. Coast Guard, as part of this project, did not require navigational lighting. So as a result of that, we're going to adhere to what the Coast Guard recommends, which is no under bridge navigational lighting.
Great. Thank you, Joe. 2 more questions. One from Elizabeth. Is there any detail available for engineered stormwater collection on the bridge itself to the retention areas, including the rate of inflow to those retention areas to prevent long-term standing water in those areas?
The answer is there is detail available through the preliminary design plans that are still being reviewed and accepted by the DOT. Whether that material is made available to the public at this time, I'll defer to the DOT on that.
I believe once we start to get all the plans accepted and approved, then they'll be disseminated to the public.
It will be public.
I believe it eventually, yes, they will.
So in process though, right now?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, great. And then I think the final question is, and then Joe, I think I'll allow you to do their closing remarks.
Sure.
In regards to schedule, have all necessary environmental permits been obtained? If there are still any under review, can you elaborate on that expected schedule?
John Ross.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. So the Rourke Bridge project required a laundry list of permits in coordination with various agencies. The only 2 outstanding permits at this moment are the water quality cert that we filed with DEP on March 8th, in addition to the pre-construction notification authorization request that we submitted to the Army Corps also on March 8th. And just for informational purposes, those are for proposed impacts to waters of the United States. So like I mentioned, we submitted those on March 8th, held a pre-consultation meeting with those agencies with the expectation that they will be issued, the permits will be issued in early June of this year. So well within the schedule.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
All right, Joe, I will turn it back over to you for closing remarks.
Thank you, Reagan. Well, I want to thank all the working group members for all your time today and throughout all 5 of the working group meetings. Your time and input has made this project the success it is, as you can see from our slide deck and the excitement in the project. We appreciate all your input and hard work. And I would like to move to close this final working group meeting for the project. And thank you all. Have a great afternoon.